I'm the Utah Cultural Site Stewardship Coordinator. That's a big word, and I like what Autumn said. In a position like that, when you're dealing with people's cultural heritage, you do get used to being uncomfortable. You know, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's kind of a very important part. A little background about me. I got a background in culture and community engagement, community engagements of all types, but this is my family. I wanted to kind of just give you a little background. My wife's from the northern Utah, Idaho, Wyoming area where the gun stores are like next level different. My daughter, Brecken, my son, Conrad, I've got a big 100-pound dog named Buffalo. And on the side, one thing that I really enjoy doing is woodworking. And
I'm Lexi Little. I am the Data and Event Specialist for the Utah Cultural Site Stewardship Program. My background is in outdoor recreation, and I was born and raised in Salt Lake City. This is a picture of my family. That's my husband, and then those are my two dogs, Mary and Pippin. If you are Lord of the Rings fans, this is what they are named after. And something that I like to do for fun is trail run. So you can usually find me in the Wasatch Mountains on my days off.
awesome. And we both work for the State Historic Preservation Office. We'll tell you a little bit about what that is in a minute. But before we launch into that, I want to talk about agenda. We really want to talk to you about the Utah Cultural Site Stewardship Program, what stewards are, why they're valuable, the critical role they play, how they help to have positive impacts on preserving, protecting, and safeguarding resources. Also, why you should become involved in this program. But before we do that, we spend a lot of time on the road, as I'm sure a lot of you guys do, so we're very fascinated in like the best gas stations or snack shops or whatever. That's how I fell in love with my wife, because she likes anything on a rotisserie wheel. But Moab has this place called the Dover. I don't know if you've ever been there, but we found this donut. It's called the cronut, and it's caramel. What they do is they take like a couple lines of cocaine and mix it with caramel. It's awesome. So just keep that in the back of your head. Now, we talked all about archaeology, and just boiled down at its basis, people tend to say it's the study of human activity through the recovery and analysis of materials culture. But we know that there's so much more to it than that. And this is a really good example. As our office has worked with the descendant community, this is the Chinese railroad worker descendant community, to do some archaeology work on some of their cultural heritage. They drove that project, were involved with that project. So there's a lot of different nuances about that. But kind of at its core, Utah has a tremendous amount of history. There's over 13,000 years of human history that we know of in the state of Utah. There's a lot of it. And archaeological laws that we learned about, a lot of them, there's a lot of room to grow, and there's a lot of changes. But a lot of them kind of come up to that 50 years ago protection area, but there's still so much more up to present that's so valuable and so important. So this program doesn't stop or start at any specific point. There's value all across the board there. And what we kind of thinking, just some of the thinking there is, context is so important. Understanding the things connected to these places. Sometimes it's tangible, sometimes like it's a thing, sometimes it's not. They're invaluable. They're not, they're non-renewable resources. And some people say they belong to everybody. Some people say they belong to nobody. So there's a lot of different ideas there. And that's just one thing that we've become very comfortable with this program is everybody has different opinions and different perspectives. Even the word stewardship, what does that mean? And that's okay, and that's what makes the program strong, is those different ideas and backgrounds. Now, how many of you have noticed more visitations? Okay, a lot of times people are like, it's the darn Californians, and there are a lot of Californians, but we're also having a lot of babies, okay? This is the reality. And so there's a lot of people in Utah that are coming from outside, but also a lot of people coming from within. And as there's been more visitation, there's been more impact on these cultural resources. Some of it has been intentionally negative, some of it has been unintentional. And this is just an example. This is the birthing panel outside of Moab, a very public site. Somebody wrote white power across it. They wrote white wrong. They spelled it wrong, so they did it again. That created a huge public outcry. And what happened is people from different agencies, so different land managers, people from the public, people from different communities approached the state and said, hey, we need more support helping to safeguard Utah's cultural resources. So the state of Utah legislated in 2020 wrote into state law the Utah Cultural Site Stewardship Program, or into state code, and they centralized it at the State Historic Preservation Office. And the reason for that is because the State Historic Preservation Office is mandated, it's a federally mandated position to work with the different communities, to work with all of the different agencies to preserve and to protect and to safeguard and ensure that those cultural stories, the objects belonging to them, the people connected to them, that's being heard, that's being safeguarded. So within the State Historic Preservation Office, we have Utah, the archaeological records and database that we maintain, compliance with archaeological laws and undertakings on public lands, historic preservation, so like historic tax credits, you've seen the plaques on old homes, things like that, human remains of cemeteries, and public archaeology. So just a little background there. In Utah, we have over, just in our system alone, it's really more like 150,000 now archaeological site records. That's a lot, okay? In a place like the Bears Ears, there's over 300,000 here that we don't even know. There's a lot. And many of these are like no place found anywhere in the world. When you read about archaeology, you read about Greece, you read about Rome, you read about Utah. Just about. It is. Go to any class, you will. And they add a lot to our quality of life. That's why you guys are here. They add a lot to our quality of life, the people who visit Utah, the people who learn about it, the people who read about it. And every day we lose a little bit of that history. Everything on this map, well, except for these where we've gotten in car accidents, but everything in tan, brown, those are all archaeological sites that we have records of. Everything in brown represents 7,000 archaeological sites that we know of that have been damaged recently. Okay, so there's a lot there. Everything in orange, that's where we have a Utah Cultural Site Steward. They help to level that playing field. And why that's important is our land managers are doing a lot of incredible work. We partner with all the different agencies, and they're doing a lot. And just to give you an example, some of this state, I don't know if this is exactly perfect, but pretty darn close. You can fit different European countries into our state, like multiple ones of them. And sometimes you'll have one archaeologist covering an area the size of a nation or a state. And that's a lot of ground to cover. And so when you have folks who are out there who care, that helps to level that playing field. And just to give you an idea, about 64% of our land is federal, 10% are state, 20% are private, 5% are tribal. And there used to be this mentality that, hey, the public's the bad guy. We gotta keep them away. Well, we're all public. We're all involved. And there's that gatekeeping mentality has changed a little bit over the years where it's like, hey, let's enlist the public. Let's get them involved in protecting and preserving and safeguarding those resources. And how kind of the drivers of this program is building a network of support for our agency partners. Going out there, getting them additional support, doing this by involving the public. People who are already out there recreating, people who care, people who are descendants from these different communities, people who are connected to them, and people who are willing to give back. And then also helping to get out in front of the problem. Sometimes we do catch the bad guys, we'll talk about that. But if we can correct behaviors, if we can stop things from happening in the first place, that's where the real change happens. That's where we make a huge difference. And if we're all honest with ourselves, we've all had some behaviors corrected that we're grateful we're not doing, anymore. And I'll kick it to Lexi.
So the first big question of the Utah Cultural Site Stewardship Program is, what are cultural site stewards? So at the core of it, these are public volunteers who assist land managers by monitoring cultural sites using an app on their phone and reporting any changes or damages that are occurring on that site. How UCSS works is there's the land managing side. We work with federal land managers, state land managers, private land managers, and really everybody in between. They give us the permission to operate on their land. They provide us with priority sites that they are concerned about. They manage the resource and they have the ultimate say. What we do as the UCSS program is we provide volunteers. We train them, we support them, we place the volunteers, and then we collect the data and then report that information back to the land managers. So we take our growth very seriously. We want to know the volunteers that are coming onto this program. We're not just signing up anyone who's interested. We're not just sending them out to sites. We want to individually get to know these people. So our onboarding process takes a bit of time. The first step after contacting us is getting signed up for an in-class training. It's 3 hours. It covers the ins and outs of what it means to be a Utah Cultural Site Steward, along with some archaeology, site types, artifacts, stewarding safely, and most importantly, ethics, how to steward responsibly. This includes leave no trace ethics, responsible recreation, and also confidentiality. We like to communicate this with our volunteers. Following that in-person training, we then send out liability forms. These 4 forms are required by the state of Utah, and they are required by our land managers for people to be able to go out and volunteer. These include liability releases, assumption of risk, code of conduct, and photographic releases. Along with these forms, we send out an application. And what that application has on it is more information to get to know these individuals, like their hiking ability, their vehicle's ability, also where they're interested in stewarding, what counties, if they want to stay close to home or if they have somewhere that they like to travel. We have found that if people can have the ability to get to their sites, they're more likely to do it consistently. That then moves us to our baseline visit, where this volunteer will go out with one of the 3 members of the UCSS team. That's me, Ian, or our colleague Chase. We head out into the field, sometimes with the land manager, and what we do is we establish a baseline. We get them familiar with the site. We answer their questions, get them set up on the app, ensure their ability, and answer any questions that they do have. This is a great opportunity for the land managers to also meet the volunteers out there on the ground. The ingestion of our data is extremely important. So it works in 3 simple steps. Starts with the volunteers out on the ground. They use the app, they send in the data. That data is then uploaded onto the Utah's archaeological database that is housed under the Marriott Library. Once it's there, it lives there, next to the original site forms for recorded archaeological sites. This is so important because archaeologists with the proper licensing can pull this information when they need it, and we are able to share this data with our land managing partners. And when reports do come in, we are consistently checking those, and if there is a damage or significant change, the land managers are notified as soon as they possibly can be, so that they have the most up-to-date information of what's going on in that area. We typically ask our stewards for 3 to 4 site visits a year. The consistency matters. These 3 to 4 site visits are going to allow for almost a time-lapse overview of what's going on to these sites. Like, could you imagine if we had photos and records of what was going on at some of these insanely popular sites now 50 years ago, to see how they had changed, to see how the management has changed? That is the importance of our data, and that's why we're looking for people to be committed. This number can change depending on the sensitivity of the site. We have even gone to sites, realized there is no visitation, and decide that it isn't necessary to have a volunteer on there.
Awesome, thanks. So right now we have 364 stewards operating in the state of Utah. This makes us the largest stewardship program in the nation. Now, some other programs have a larger amount of people, but these are active stewards, and we report active stewards. We're also the youngest program in the nation, and growth is not our problem. We want to grow smart. We want to make sure that our stewards are supported, that they're acting ethically, that our land managers are getting the support that they need, and that it's bringing in the right partners and creating a collective front. And that's the cool thing about this program, by the way, is this program is a collective front of the peoples of Utah showing to the world the value that we place on our cultural heritage and the resources here, and we take it seriously. We have set up regional coordinators in different regions throughout the state to help assist with this project, because having those local peoples with those local connections and that knowledge is critical. This is the regional coordinator here, Emery Blanchard. If you ever met her, she's awesome. Now, we work with 139 individual land managers. Those are the people that give us the permission to operate. Not just the land managers we work with, but the green light people, the people that say yes and no. During the time of this program, over 35 of those people have turned over, and what would traditionally happen throughout the state is those programs would collapse. Volunteers would get frustrated, they wouldn't know what's going on. If somebody retires or moves or leaves, or they'd be left in limbo. So what we do is we ensure that they are still getting the support they need until the next archaeologist comes, and then we meet with that person, let them know about their volunteers, and it keeps going on. So both the volunteers are supported and the land managing agencies are supported. So Lexi and I could get abducted by aliens right now. Chase would love that. He would just take over, keep things going, regional coordinators, it'd be awesome. We work very closely with law enforcement because these monitoring reports can be used in litigation. And law enforcement are involved in all of our trainings. And just so, Sophia Kelly, if you've ever read technical briefs, they're awesome if you love really long technical briefs. But this one, Sophia Kelly with the National Park Service, she surveyed all the states that had stewardship programs. And what she found out is that states that had programs received less damage, less vandalism, because it showed that collective front. And we do track all this, and we have hundreds of damages a year, ranging from little things to major things. We had about 30 significant ones this year that we reported through the stewardship program. And just to give you an idea, we've got 3 in litigation that have gone through litigation, whether they're people looking for Spanish gold, treasure hunting, or arson. You know, it goes. But it's really neat for those forms to be able to be used in that process for those laws that we heard about earlier. Just in case you guys aren't aware, Utah has a new state flag. Okay, this was one that was submitted. You can get it on a T-shirt, but I like the state gun. There were a lot of guns, you know. Okay, but why should you guys care? Why should you care? Well, not about flag, but about this. Well, first, because it's your story. It's your friend's story. It's your neighbor's story. All of our history overlaps. There's a lot of history in the state of Utah.
And just a couple other reasons of why you should care about the Utah Cultural Site Stewardship Program. So we're all the public, and we all care very deeply about these areas and the cultural heritage of the state. And so this program provides the public with an opportunity to take action and really help safeguard these resources. We have opportunities for stewards, stuff like assisting with site documentation. Something that's really cool about this photo, this was a rock imagery re-recording with the BLM office in Cedar City. And the volunteers that were there, they were our stewards. They weren't trained archaeologists, but they got to get out there and actually help redocument this site within 2 days. If it was just the archaeologists, it would have taken weeks to do. We also like to do workshops and educational opportunities for everyone. We think it's important for everyone to learn, but also to be able to experience what they would like. This was at one of our get-togethers, and this is actually Sandra. She was the last BLM archaeologist for Grand Staircase. But we went and collected bulrush, which is that plant, and then we learned we learned from professionals how to properly harvest it, dry it out, and then they were turned into prehistoric duck decoys by someone who knew how to do that. So our volunteers were able to try this new thing, which was super awesome. That's also one of our stewards who we work with as well. We also have our steward participate in service projects. This one is really cool because it came about because of recreation. And what we're doing here is working with a bunch of different agencies to better protect the cultural resources and then ensure safety with recreation as well. So outdoor recreation and cultural heritage are now overlapping more than ever. And some of the drivers of this is because people are very passionate about certain areas. That could be the cultural aspects, the environmental aspects, or other personal aspects. They could be a descendant of the community and they're looking to give back or protect these areas. These are just a couple of examples of cultural sites that are also recreation areas. There are Forest Service guard stations throughout the state, and these historic cabins are actually starting to get renovated by the land manager so that you can rent them out and camp in them when you're there. So that's a way to keep the historic building and keep it in use. There are mining sites still standing in ski areas. There's sites that are only accessible by airboat. And then there's military sites where people snowmobile during the winter. And a lot of the reason that these sites are now so popular with recreation is because of the history that happened a long time ago, and sometimes even a little bit more recently. These are just a couple of the partners that we work with to really make sure that we're keeping our foot in the door with outdoor recreation, because the importance of protecting outdoor recreation accessibility, but also the natural and cultural resources, they go hand in hand, and we want to make sure that we're playing a role in that. This was a historic snowshoe tour through Alta that we did with the Alta Environmental Center. We work really closely with the Division of Outdoor Recreation, their sister agency, and what's really cool about this event is we're taking people to historic mining sites and talking about the history. And the history isn't just Utah history, it's Western history, because this is the Mountain West Trails Conference. It involves people from Colorado, Nevada, Wyoming, Idaho, and it's what we really like to focus on is how to recreate responsibly in these culturally significant areas. And the land managers are stoked about this, the county wants to be involved, local ATV clubs are involved, and it's a good way to bring people together over a common interest. And that's what the UCSS program does. It's a huge community full of diverse people that all have the interest of safeguarding and preserving the things that are important to them. When you're a cultural site steward, we keep you in the loop. We like to keep communication very consistent and as personal as we can. And this is how you can learn about events and other information within areas. We recently held a get-together in Kanab. We invited the Nevada and Arizona site stewardship programs as well. So land managers from all 3 states, stewards from all 3 states came together, and it was a super awesome time. This is a great way for stewards to just get to know each other and have a good time hanging out.
And just kind of wrapping things up, this is a great way to develop stronger working relationships, because in this picture alone, there are all sorts of different recreationals, trail builders, agencies, and it's a good way just to learn the different people that are within the field and to interact with them. And it really builds education awareness. This was an opportunity we had to go out with the Paiute Indian Tribe of Utah to learn from them. We didn't have any asks or anything, just to kind of build that relationship and to learn from one another and to grow. And it's incredible too, because so many times when I look at our partnership list, these people should not be friends, right? They're always suing each other and fighting each other. But one thing that everybody can agree on is that need to help to safeguard these resources. And we've learned never to underestimate our stewards. They're people like you, they're people who have history buffs, they're land managers, they're state legislators, they're activists, they're oil truck drivers, they're hunters, they're all from over the place. And having that diversity of opinion and thought and perspective all joining together to contribute to this is what makes this program strong. So thank you so much for your opportunity.